All right, let's move it along here, gang. And let's talk a little defensive players. All right. Well, if you guys tuned in yet, I think it was yesterday. We did the show yesterday. Yesterday morning, we broke down the offensive side of the ball, right? And really what we did was we kind of went into the PFF grades. Okay. So we showed you the top performing offensive players on according to PFF on the Packers roster. Today, we're going to do the same with the defensive side. And then we're going to wrap it up with a little contract talk. We'll give you kind of an idea of where everybody's contract's at and kind of set the stage for moving forward into 2026, right? So with that being said, I want to start with this tweet from Wendell Ferreira. And you guys, if you guys tuned into this show last year, we have pretty extensive draft coverage, right? We cover it from start to finish. We build scouting reports for the players. We throw it up on our Patreon group. Full scouting reports all the way from high school up till the last game they played in college. And we get experts' opinions as well and sprinkle those in. We build our own draft board. We do the whole 9 yards, right? You guys remember, if you go back and watch last year, we were saying two things. Offensive line, we need a lot of offensive line help. And I was hoping we fixed it this year because we did. We went out and drafted a second-round pick, right, and Anthony Belton. He went and spent $27 million in signing bonus on Aaron Banks, although you can get out of that this year, the full $77 million they gave him. I think everybody agrees he's been underwhelming, right? He's underperformed. So you did some things to try to bolster that offensive line, but it just didn't work. You're going to need to do it again. But the other piece that we talked about was defensive tackle. And the reason being is I did not feel like we had a dominant three-tech. We always talked about Devonte Wyatt being a great pass rusher, right? I think we would consider him a great pass rusher. He's definitely a very good pass rusher. I think everybody would agree with that. But again, he's not dominant. What does dominant mean? When you think of dominant three techs, defensive tackles, and someone who can play shade as well, one tech and nose, mainly three tech, I think of someone who's top 5 or top 10 in the league. And I know everybody's thinking, well, they don't just grow on trees, Clayton. Exactly. That's why you need to keep swinging until you find one. Everybody made fun of the Dallas Cowboys for trading for Quinnen Williams. I love that trade. If the Packers could get Quinnen Williams, now you went and got Micah, so you already traded a ton of draft capital. So this is just hindsight being 2020. If the Micah Parsons trade was not on the table, if we had traded for Quinnen Williams, what the Dallas Cowboys traded for him, I would have been over the moon. I'd have been like, we got our three tech guys. He can play nose, but he can move around that defensive line and put him in at three tech. That's what I'm talking about, a dominant three tech, right? Your Chris Joneses of the world. People have been giving Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and that Chiefs offense all the credit for winning these Super Bowls. Well, here recently, guys, it's been Chris Jones and Spags' defense in Kansas City. That's how important defensive tackle is, and specifically three tech. And again, Chris Jones can play wide 9. He can play 7. He can kick into 5. He can go 4-eye. He can go 3. He can play nose. All over the defensive line, Chris Jones can play. With that being said, we still don't have a dominant three tech. Devonte Wyatt will be back next year, right? We got the 5th-year option on him. I think he's due to make $12 million fully guaranteed. I said originally I would not give him the 5th-year option. However, we made a bet. Me and Chris did in here. Shout out to Chris the Casual M. We made a bet on whether Goody would put a 5th-year option tag on either Quay or Devonte Wyatt. I didn't think he would do both, but I said I just about guarantee he'd do one. So we had a friendly wager, right? Well, they did. They tagged Devonte Wyatt. But again, back to my original comment, I would not do that. Why? I don't think Devonte Wyatt's a dominant three tech. I don't. So if you could take that $12 million coupled with something else and go and get a three tech in free agency, or maybe you can, take multiple swings in the draft. Well, now we don't have a first-round pick, right, because we traded for Michael Parsons. So now the blueprint makes sense why they gave Devonte Wyatt the 5th-year option, because they see Devonte Wyatt as a three tech, and then they went out and got Michael Parsons. Now people immediately, we got Rashan Gary, we got LVM, we got all these other edge defenders. Rashan Gary is not a part of the future plan here, guys. And you guys know I love Rashan Gary. I think he has been beaten and battered over the last 3 years, and it's absolute BS. The guy always led us in sacks. He leads in run stops. He's one of the most underrated players on the team. People told me I was crazy. Lo and behold, his fellow peers in the league rated him the 80th best player in the league. So he's one of the top 100 players in the league. Again, this is voted on by the peers, by the players, not the media, the players on the field lining up across from Rashan Gary. And people at his craft, his position, watching across the sideline going, damn, I wish I could be like that dude. With that being said, you've now got Micah Parsons. There's your dominant edge defender, right? So now you need your 3 tech. Well, you got Devonte Wyatt coming back next year, okay? You still need to go after a 3 tech. You got to. I'm sorry. You've still got to go after a 3 tech, because if you don't work out a contract extension with Devonte Wyatt, and let's say Devonte Wyatt's not willing to take anything less than $25 million per, something crazy, right? If that's the case, you better have another defensive tackle to be able to plug into 3 tech. Again, go look for Quinnen Williams in the draft. Go look for Quinnen Williams in free agency. That's money well spent. It's a position of tier 1 importance. Now, if you're going, how can you afford to do that, Clayton? You got a bunch of players we talked about on offense yesterday that you could potentially let go, right? Like Aaron Banks, you let him go, you free up $4 million in cap space. That's after the dead cap is accelerated, I should say. If you let Elton Jenkins, if you cut him, you free up $20 million in cap space. Well, the same thing kind of applies with Rashan Gary. I think there's $11 million attached. Okay. Now, listen, I would love to see Rashan Gary back next year for the right price. So it's probably going to be them approaching him and asking for a restructure, asking for a renegotiation, if you will. Yes, it's a pay cut, but you're taking a portion of the non-guaranteed money, right? And you're going to convert it to signing bonus and put money in his pocket right now, and you cut down on the cap. That's cash over cap, right? Like we talked about. That's even if you do voidable years or not, you can still play that cash over cap game that way. So with that being said, let's talk 3 tech for a second. Wendell Ferreira put this tweet out, and it came from Stat Account is what it says on X. He says, D tackle is a big need for the Packers in the offseason. I want you to look at this chart. Now, on the bottom, running from left to right for everybody listening on the podcast, you've got quarterback pressures, okay? So it's got a quarterback pressures from left to right, right being the high number, the good side, right? On the left side, running vertically, from the lower left up to the upper left, is you've got stops, run stops. What's a stop? That's when a player makes a tackle that results in a negative play in terms of EPA, right? So running vertically on the left, you've got your run defense essentially, and running horizontally from left to right on the bottom, you got your quarterback pressures, right? How you rush the quarterback. If you'll notice where our defensive tackles are here, Kobe Wooden he's above the median line in terms of stops. Okay, so he's good against the run, which is naturally that's what you want from your nose tackle. That the general has been basically playing 1-0 tech, a little bit of shade, and just kind of playing that nose tackle position, right? Carl Brooks, who has now replaced essentially Devonte Wyatt since him being out, is in the lower left quadrant. Okay, so what we've got here is he's below average in pressures, and he's below average in stops. Now, listen, he just got back from injury. I got you. He has played significant snaps this year, but there's neither of these guys are the defensive tackle of the future. Now, when Devonte Wyatt's healthy, he's the 3 tech. We know that. However, I feel comfortable with Kobe Wooden playing nose. He's been good good with stops. You're not paying him to get after the quarterback. Most of the time, as we've seen with Kenny Clark last year, they're just playing to touch spy in Jeff Hafley's defense, which is essentially line up in the A gap, put your hands on both the guard and the center, i.e. the touch, and then you're just kind of mirroring the quarterback and also watching for the draw play, things like that. You don't need to spend a bunch of money to get a player to do that. That's why they traded away Kenny Clark, because it's like we're wasting money here. We can get just about anybody to do that and hold the point of attack if we find someone who's just good against the run, right? So now the question is, do you have the 3 tech of the future? Many people think we do in Devonte Wyatt. I'm not sold. I'm glad he's on the roster, and that's a good place. It's kind of like with Sean Ryan. If you re-sign Sean Ryan back and you build him, you kind of got a high floor. Devonte Wyatt as our 3 tech, I feel good about. I don't feel great, but I feel good about it. What if you go out and you find a Quinnen Williams in the draft, or you go find a player like that and you overpay for great, not overpay for good in free agency, and get you a solid 3 tech to rotate with Devonte Wyatt and to work into when you get in those pass situations. If you're not playing the Joker 1 look, you put both of those guys in a 3 tech, and then you've got 2 wide 9s to rush the quarterback, cage rush, stunt in the middle, whatever you want to do. You create options for yourself. But again, 3 tech and edge are positions of tier 1 importance, in my opinion. So it's important to go and get If Devonte Wyatt gets hurt again next year, we're right back in the same spot. Now, listen, I don't think that this is a bigger need than offensive line. Offensive line, in my opinion, is the top need that this Packers team has. Many people will say corner. I don't see it that way, because if the corners will just play their freaking assignment, you could see that you don't need a superstar to go out there and do what Jeff Hafley's asking these corners to do. You just need a cornerback who, when we call quarters match, plays it top down. When we call a banjo man coverage, around the goal line, he doesn't bite up on anything underneath. He makes damn sure that whoever releases on his side in banjo coverage, he's going to keep them from making an easy, wide open catch, right? You can't do that with a 3-tech. There's nothing Jeff Hafley can do with a 3-tech to go, I'm going to scheme this to make it easy on that 3-tech. No, a 3-tech has got to be a dog. A 3-tech has got to have superhuman strength and quick twitch, first step burst, to be able to be better than the players in front of him, period, case closed. Cornerback and Jeff Hafley's defense is totally different. So that's my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. That I feel very strongly about that. You can probably hear it in my voice. So, I hate to throw single players under the bus. And you guys know who I'm talking about, but I'm not going to say the name because I just feel like it's disrespectful. Get a player that's going to play the coverage. That might be Kamal Hadden. That may be him. Hell, it may be Nate Hobbs. We didn't see Nate Hobbs doing that early on in the season. He wasn't just completely forgetting his assignment. I'm going to go do what I want to do here. That was the problem with Jair. Jair done it multiple times last year, and he got cooked both times. I remember A.J. Brown week 1 cooked his ass, and it was because we had man coverage, and he ran an out and an up, or it was either an out and up or a sluggo, and Ja was like, the heck with what the defensive call is. I'm just going to go jump this route. And that's how you get in trouble. It happened against the Chargers, or not the Chargers. It happened against the Broncos 2 weeks ago. It happened against the Bears this week. I'd sit their ass down. That's me. I wouldn't do this in front of the team, but I would pull that player in. I'd sit down across them and go, hey man, what am I doing wrong here? As a coach, this is what I would say. What am I doing wrong here? Well, I don't think you're doing anything wrong. Okay. Why are you biting on these? Well, I'm just trying to make a play. That's great. We want you to make plays. But don't you think it's more important to do exactly what the defensive call says? I'm not going to eat your lunch because you got beat in close coverage and you're in a guy's hip pocket over the top. When I look up and go, they just beat us on the scheme call. I'm not going to eat your lunch over that. I am going to eat your lunch when I tell you play it top down, do not get beat over the top. Make sure you don't give them an easy completion in the back of the end zone to tie the freaking ball game or whatever the scenario is, right? I am going to eat your lunch when you go, I know I'm supposed to play top down, but I'm just going to bite down and do whatever the heck I want to do. Imagine if every player on the field, both on offense and defense, played their assignment that way. Imagine how bad the Packers would get beat every week. Imagine if Jordan Love went out there and said, okay, I know the read is the 1 on the front side to the 2 on the back side and then catch the crosser over the middle on the 3 read, right? But you know what? Heck with that. The 4 read, here's a go route. I feel like throwing a go ball. I'm just going to throw a go ball here and throw it into double coverage and throw a pick. Imagine how the game plan would unfold. First of all, Matt LaFleur would sit his ass. We know that, right? So, with all that being said, same thing with the running back. Imagine it's an A-gap left run and the hole's wide open, but Josh Jacobs decides, you know what? I know that gets the ball. I know we got leverage here, but I want to do something flashy. I'm going to bounce it C-gap right. And he does that from time to time when the hole ain't there. That's what makes Josh Jacobs so good. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox. I just want to say that I don't look at the cornerback position and go, oh, boy, we need to get better at corner. No, we need to find corners that will actually play the scheme, right? So, all right, now let's talk about the defensive grades. Took a long time to get to this point. We'll go rapid fire through it and then talk a little bit about contracts and get out of here, okay? I know it's Christmas Eve. I can't believe we got so many people watching here. Greatly appreciate everybody jumping in, man. We got a ton of people in there hanging out. Thank y'all for making us a part of your Christmas Eve here. Don't tick the family off, all right? Go spend time with family. But if you're like me and you had a few minutes this morning, why not talk some ball, right? Okay, so here are your top performers on defense. Micah Parsons, 92.0, no surprise. Guys, we've got our dominant edge rusher of the future. I have no worries at all about him coming back even better than he was before with the new ACL. That's just my opinion. Xavier McKinney in the number 2 spot, 82.1. Edgerrin Cooper at stack backer, 75.5. Dog. Look at Tyron Hopper, guys. Again, only 57 snaps, but a 74.7. Isaiah McDuffie under contract next year, 72.6. All of these players I just mentioned are under contract. How great is that? Evan Williams, 71.9, under contract. Look at our boy Lucas Van Ness, guys. And again, he's been banged up. He's got to be able to stay on the field. I got you. 216 snaps, 71.1. Look at the green across the board. I mean, literally, pass rush, 67.2. Tackle grade, 78.5. Run defense, 66.3. For a defensive grade of 71.1. Hell, he's dropped into coverage a couple of times. Got a 72.2. How cool is that? Lucas Van Ness, I think, is going to be good enough to play opposite of Micah Parsons. That's just my personal opinion. Now, you want to kick him inside from time to time, I got you. That's great and all. But if we have to get rid of Rashan Gary, I feel good about where LVN is at now. Okay. Now, Rashan Gary, 68.0. Not a horrible grade. And listen, I understand he's underperforming. I got you. If you believe that, I completely get it. Now, when you watch him in run defense, you can tell he's not the guy pinning his ears back there, letting Micah just rush the quarterback. And Gary's kind of compressing the pocket and playing the run, and he's done really good at playing the run. I do not agree with the PFF grades that are attached to Rashan Gary here. I don't. However, not having a sack in the last 7 or 8 games, that's a tough look. Now, he's coming off the field quite a bit, and they're doing a heavy rotation like they always have. That comes into play as well. So let's stop there for a second. Let's talk about Rashan Gary, because that's the first player we've gotten to where we can significantly say, you know what? It might make sense for him not to be on the roster next year. I think it makes a lot of sense to keep him, too, for the right price. So with Rashan Gary's contract, I'm going to drop this down for just a second. We'll come back to it. Let's look at the structure of Rashan Gary's contract here. And we'll put it up. This is from Spot Track. You guys can go check this out yourself. Okay, so Rashan Gary's cap hit next year is set at, I don't know why they don't put them. I could care less about the active GM bonuses and everything. I don't know why they just make sure the cap hits on the screen. It's maybe a little bit hard to read. Hopefully you guys can see it, okay? So this year's cap hit, $25.7 million. The dead cap attached is $34.9, okay? So now in 2026, next year, his cap hit only raises $3 million, a little less than $3 million. Okay, so like 2.8, whatever it is. All right. So his cap percentage actually goes down. This is what's funny about the people who say Rashan Gary's been overpaid. Look at the cap percentage up here, guys. He was only 5.2% of the cap in 23, well worth the money. 2024, 4.3% of the cap, well worth the money. This year, 9.2 with the way he's performed. It's close. It's, in my opinion, because, again, I'm keying in on the tape and watching the run defense and knowing what they're doing there in conjunction with Micah Parsons when he was on the field, okay? So you couldn't get out of it this year with the dead cap. Next year, though, $28 million is the cap hit. I'm okay with keeping Gary for that price, me personally. Now, you want to try to save some money if you can. What's the dead cap? $17 million. So in layman's terms, you could cut Gary next year and free up $11 million in cap space. So now you got to ask yourself, is it worth it to not have Gary on the roster at all to have $11 million extra in cap space? In my opinion, you can't go find somebody at Gary's level for $11 million. You probably have to go in the range that he's at there. People forget how much edge defenders are getting paid in the league. Yeah, I mean, like Micah Parsons is what? Anywhere from 40 to 60 million is what he's going to be, something like that per year. So the fact that you got Gary at 28 million, I can see how it makes sense if someone's argument is I'd rather keep him. Here's the way I would approach it. Since you've got that 17 million, now the number you're trying to beat is 11 million, okay? If you went to Gary and look at his base salary, 18 million, his restructure, blah, 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 active roster there, signing. So 18 million is the number we're going to go with, okay? So with the $18 million, if you went to him and said, hey, Gary, we want to try to shave $8 million off of our cap, okay? Now, let's say $6 million off of our cap. And you went to him and said, here's the two options, okay? We cannot have you on the roster at $28 million cap hit. So if we want to shave $6 million off of our cap, okay, and we go to you with the $18 million and we say, okay, here's what we want to do. We want to take $6 million off So that's going to lower your base salary to $12 million. He's going to be going, what the hell are you talking about? Right. Okay, cool. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to convert $5 million of that to signing bonus, and we'll just cut you a check. We'll put that in your bank account right now. $5 million bonus if you shave some cap space off. Now, another way you can go is just if he says, no, I'm not taking a cap hit at all, you can also go the route if you need the cap right now, and you can go, okay, well, we're going to convert 9 million of the let's say 10 million, 10 million of the 18 million in base salary. We're going to convert 10 of it to fully guaranteed signing bonus, tack on 2 voidable years, and kick that can down the road. And now you don't even have to worry about that until 2028, where we know the cap's going to blow up anyway, right? I don't think the Packers are in a cap situation where they need to do that. That's why I think they'll ask him for a pay cut with a little bit of restructure incentive with the signing bonus to keep him on the roster. Now, if he says, nope, not adjusting anything, I want every dollar I've earned, at that point, you probably cut bait, and I would be okay with that because now you're freeing up $11 million. But now, again, you got to go back to, would you rather have him on the field? Your run defense is going to take a hit if Gary isn't on this team. That's a fact, right? I mean, there's got to be a reason our run defense is so good. The safeties are a big part, but Rashan Gary is a big part of that too. So again, you've got options there. But the moral of the story is, in my opinion, he will not be on the roster for a $28 million cap hit next year. And if you're asking, well, why didn't they do that this year if that's the case, Clayton? Because, again, you had $34 million, really $35 million in dead cap attached, which basically meant if you moved on from him this year, you're eating an additional $10 million. The cap number goes up. That's why he was on the roster. Now you're in that window, that 2-year window where it makes sense to, hey, we need a little bit of that back, or we're just going to move on. I can see that happening. So just wanted to throw that out there. So we fully understood exactly where the cap situation was with Rashan Gary. Okay, so let's move along. Other top players here, if I can get this readjusted. All right. So we talked about Rashan Gary. We know where we're at there. Carrington Valentine under contract. He's going to be on this roster, no doubt about it. Here's our boy Keisean. We've talked about Keisean a lot, right? And if you guys didn't know, that's the player we were talking about if you're new here. And again, I don't like to be overly negative with players because, it's just, I can't stand the people that hide behind a microphone and talk about a player like he's a bum, and then they go out and interview him in the locker room and act like nothing happened. That's just I can't live like that. Sorry. Now I'm not in the locker room, obviously, but I've got a rule on this podcast. If I wouldn't say it to somebody's face, I'm not going to say it on a podcast. That's just chicken blank, if you know what I mean. But Keisean has played good this year, guys. 66.8. Okay. Run defense grade 73.6. He'll bring the boom. Tackle grade 82.8. Pass rush, when they have fired him on a cap blitz, 74.2 on the pass rush. The coverage grade is a 66.9. Again, just like Ja, he covers well. He's got all the tools to be a good cover corner. Surprised the hell out of me watching him make a successful transition to the cornerback position outside from a slot corner and an undrafted free agent. Again, this is a guy. Keisean is a guy. I want to be very clear. He has overperformed expectations from when he came in the league from day one. Okay, so I don't want to get rid of him. I just want to have a sit-down conversation with him going, bruh, you're playing so good. Just play your freaking assignment. That's all you got to do. I think they can fix this. With that being said, you can't count on that. So now who's the next man up? It could be Kamal Hadden, right? It could be, insert somebody on down the road. We talked about Kamal Hadden. We talked about other players that you could pull off the practice squad, right? That you could get them to play the assignment, right? But they're not going to be as good and sticky in coverage as Key is. And they're almost guaranteed to not be as aggressive against the run. Again, you can't be happy about having a great run defense in the National Football League and not acknowledge the players who are giving you that run defense. Keisean's one of the key roles at the cornerback position, helping set the edge and be aggressive underneath to help stop the run. Same as Rashan Gary. It's easy to just look at the sack numbers and go, oh, he sucks. No, there's a reason you got a good run defense grade. Rashan Gary and Keisean Nixon are playing a role in that. The big role, in my opinion, is our boy Edgerrin Cooper and, of course, the safety play in both Xavier McKinney and our boy Evan Williams, which, God, what a blessing it is to have those guys on the team. So when we look at Keisean and the salary cap for next year, I did not have it pulled up. Actually, I got it right here. Yeah. So Keisean Nixon, you're going, Clayton, why would you want to keep Keisean? Why would you want to keep Keisean? Because I want him to fix the problem and go back to playing great football, right? Well, what's his cap hit next year? In 2026, his cap hit is $7.1 million. The dead cap attached is 2.1. What's that mean? Here is the cost benefit analysis evaluation of Keisean Nixon. Okay. Would you want Keisean Nixon on the roster, or would you rather have $5 million extra in cap space? I personally would rather have him on the roster, but I just want him playing his assignment. Right. So that's a conversation that needs to be had between Derek Ansley, Jeff Hafley, and Keisean Nixon. They need to sit down and be like, hey, we got to fix this. We got to fix it now. Okay. Because again, I think he's played good all year. But at the tune of $7 million against the cap, I think Keisean is money well spent, in my opinion. Okay. So with that being said, I would bring him back at that price. Now you've got a little bit of wiggle room there because again, the dead cap attached is the $2 million. You could convert some base salary to signing bonus if you're going to have him on the roster anyway, and kick that money down the road a little bit, or just put it on the backside of the contract, what have you. So Keisean to me makes sense to keep. It's just got to be coached up, man. You can't be belling on your assignment. You just can't do it. All right. Next player, Brenton Cox Jr., 66.3, right? Brenton Cox Jr. Next year, just looking at the cap, I don't think he's technically under contract for the Packers next year. Let me do a quick check. I shouldn't be doing this on the fly. I apologize for the dead air here, but let's see here. We got Brenton Cox Jr., and then we're going to go spot track. Give me just a second because I do want to know exactly where he sits here, because I think he's not under contract. However, he's a restricted free agent. So we can have Brenton Cox Jr. back next year if we want it. All right. So count him as on the roster, and that's great there. So when you talk about potentially moving on from Rashan Gary, you don't feel as bad about it because you've got a player like Brenton Cox Jr. lying in the way. You drafted Barron Sorrell, who I think's played pretty good. I don't know how PFF feels about him. They don't like him that much, 53.4. Maybe that'll change with more snaps. I don't know. But Brenton Cox Jr., you like him being that rotational guy, right? We talk about Enigbare being down there to 62.4. So where's Enigbare at? Okay. Let's see if we can find him real quick. Kingsley Enigbare. All right. Kingsley's contract, I think, is up this year. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. So I do not see them re-signing Kingsley. I think Kingsley wants to hit the market, and I think he will get outpriced. He'll get priced out of the Packers' range, in my opinion. So to me, Kingsley Enigbare hitting free agency. And you've got Brenton Cox Jr. you can have back if you want him back. You've got Barron Sorrell, right? You've got also Colin Oliver. We were talking about him. We're going to get to see him a little bit too. So that makes a lot of sense in terms of the edge room. The fact that Kingsley's not going to be here makes me want to be a little more aggressive with Rashan Gary in terms of getting him back. I would lean toward a restructure with Gary to free up cap space and give him a little bit more guaranteed money to make it a little easier to absorb the hit, because Enigbare is not going to be here next year, if that makes sense. Now, you may be thinking, nope, cut Rashan Gary, free up the $11 million fully. We're okay without Enigbare, and we're going to roll with LVN, Micah Parsons, with Brenton Cox Jr. and Barron Sorrell, Colin Oliver coming off the bench. Again, the fact that you drafted those two edge defenders and you went and got Micah Parsons makes me think they're going to move on from Rashan Gary next year, unless he's willing to take a huge pay cut to stay in Green Bay. And that's on the table too. I wouldn't expect him to do that, but that's how I would see it. Okay. So with that being said, moving along here, Christian Welch, don't care either way, really. Javon Bullard's contract situation, he's still under contract next year, so we're good to go there. I'm happy with the way he's played slot. I don't know how you guys feel. I thought he played pretty good safety against the Bears. Let's see if PFF agreed. Yeah, 61.4. Decent, right? Had a bad game in Denver, according to PFF. But he played pretty good safety play there. Actually, no. Yeah, he did play safety, right? He started at safety. I remember that being announced in the game. I don't know why they got him as a slot cornerback. So we'll have to go back and watch the tape and see exactly where he lined up 100% of the time. But nonetheless, you feel good about that, right? Javon Bullard, 63.8. Kingsley Enigbare, we talked about 62.4, probably going to hit free agency. Kamal Hadden, 62.3. Some people say put Kamal Hadden out there over Keisean. I can't argue with that because I think Kamal Hadden will play the assignment. I don't think he'll be as good at playing cornerback as Keisean. But again, Keyshawn's problems aren't he doesn't have the tools to play cornerback. Keisean is just, busting off his coverage and doing what he wants to do, right? So I agree. Gooseby in the chat says Bullard been solid this year. Completely agree, man. Completely agree. Daryl in the chat says Nate Hobbs has been somewhat inconsistent. The man has to step up towards the end of the season. I felt like he took a step in the right direction, Daryl, last week. Let's take a quick look at it. Where's our boy Nate Hobbs? So Nate Hobbs, last week, 62.8. So here recently, he's played pretty good. Weeks 14, 15, and 16, albeit 10 snaps, had to play 38 snaps with Evan Williams being out, right? But a 62.8, pretty solid. I can handle that. All right. That's in the range or okay. And we'll talk about him here in a second, actually, because I think he will return next year. We got to wrap this up soon. My wife's going to kill me. Since we're at Nate Hobbs, 61.1, let's just talk about it. So Nate Hobbs next year on the salary cap table, his cap hit is $13 million. The dead cap attached is $12 million. So again, you can get out of that contract if you don't want to tie up a roster spot with Nate Hobbs next year. But now the question becomes, guys, is it worth it to move on from Nate Hobbs to only free up $1 million? To me, the answer is an emphatic no. You want to keep him on the roster at that. Now, next year, things get different, right? Next year, things are very, very different. If you were to look at his cap hit next year in 2027, I'm sorry, next year is in 2027, not 2026. Cap hit $14 million, dead cap $8 million. So really, that was a 4-year deal. That was really a 2-year deal. Because again, you can free up a significant amount of cap space there, right? You can basically free up $6 million if you wanted to move on from Nate next year. So I think Nate Hobbs will be on the Packers this coming year. It's not even close. He'll be a part of this team. And I hope that he's going to be able to fill in at slot from time to time, right? He doesn't look good at outside corner, but maybe a whole training camp where he can stay healthy, he can learn how to play outside corner a little bit better, right? A couple other players here. Devonte Wyatt, we were talking about him, right, at 3-tech. We'll hit on this real quick. I made it pretty evident earlier. I don't think he's a dominant 3-tech. I think he's a very good pass rusher, and he leaves a lot to be desired in the run game. Well, his grades here, according to PFF, Devonte Wyatt, is pass rush grade is let me see if I can line that up. Yeah, so it's the second column, 71.4, solid grade, right? His tackling has gotten way better. His tackle grade this year, a 76.8, okay? But look at the run defense grade, guys, 38.7. That's what I mean by he's not a dominant 3-tech. He's a very good pass rusher, and he's a poor run defender, in my opinion. So you take the poor run defense. Again, we can't be so over the moon and happy about our run defense being great and not acknowledge who's being good and who's being bad in it, right? So if his run defense grade was in the 60s, and I actually agreed with what, because I do kind of agree with what his run defense is here on the tape. He's gotten better at tackling. We see that all over the tape. Last year, he was getting juked out of his shoes. This year, he breaks down really well. He shows good tackling for him. He can bring the ball carrier down, right? But he gets just crazy in his run fits. He just kind of focus on rushing the quarterback. Next thing you know, he's a half a gap out of place, and they'll gash us, right? Now, you haven't seen that much this year because the linebackers behind him are playing well, i.e. Edgerrin Cooper and Isaiah McDuffie, I felt like played really well. Quay, you guys know I'm hot and cold on Quay. I don't think Quay is as bad as PFF says at a 52.1, but some people, think that Quay is a dominant linebacker. I just don't see him that way. Love Quay as a person. I love how aggressive he is, but there's a lot to be desired there. I don't think he's lived up to that first round. If Quay Walker had been a 3rd or a 4th round pick, I would like Quay Walker. I'd be like, yeah, man, that was a good pick. But the fact that he's a 1st round pick and now we're having to decide, do we pay him top linebacker money? Just can't get on board with that. And again, he is an unrestricted free agent going into this year. An offer was put on the table. It sounds like he was weighing that option out. He did not like the offer they gave him. So it sounds like the Packers agree with my assessment of Quay Walker, that you're not willing to pay him top linebacker money. You're just not. And again, okay, well, you got to have a backup plan, right? If you do not re-sign Quay Walker, who's your backup stack backer? I don't know. Isaiah McDuffie at a 72.6, who's under contract next year. Tyron Hopper at a 74.7, albeit 57 snaps, but he's under contract and younger. I think the writing's on the wall. I think they went to Quay Walker and said, here's our best offer. You think it over, and by the end of the season, we need an answer, right? And Quay said, that's not the number I want. I think I can get more in free agency, and he probably can because he's a physical freak. But I would be willing to spend that money somewhere else and give Tyron Hopper and Isaiah McDuffie a go next year. and you take a swing or two in the draft this year at another stack backer. So that's kind of how I see that. Yeah, completely agree, Jay. Jay says linebacker is a sneaky need this offseason. Completely agree. Probably going to have to take at least one swing, possibly two. But again, if Quay accepts that offer, that's great. We like him at that number, whatever that number is. Is it $7 million per? Is it $8 million per? But when you look at other stack backers across the league and they're getting paid, a ton of money, I'm not willing to pay Quay Walker top 5 stack backer money. I'm just not willing to do it. What do I know though? You know what I mean? I'm not a front office guru executive here. So, yeah, moving on. Kobe Wooden 50.6. Again, I'm okay. I don't think his PFF grade lines up with the play I've seen on the field. I think he's been a really good run defender, and that's what you're wanting out of your one tech. He doesn't have to be a world breaker. I just don't want to tie a bunch of money up in a one tech. You're willing to tie money up in a 3 tech, right? Because you need that guy to be dominant both in the pass and the run. The one tech, he's going to be playing against a double team most of the time anyway. So you're kind of taking a good player and just washing him out. You're already a +1 hat count. Do that with a player that's cheap on the salary cap, as opposed to a player that, like if you were to put Devonte Wyatt in a situation where he's got to face a double team every single snap, you're wasting his talent. You want to get someone who's a good pass rusher like Devonte Wyatt or the next 3 tech of the future. You want to put him in a position where he's getting a one-on-one block. Well, how do you do that? You play him at 3 tech and put him in the B gap. 3 tech, if you guys are wondering, if you're new here, is the gap in between the guard and the tackle. So you put him in between the guard and the tackle with a wide 9 outside, maybe a LVN, right? Well, the tackle's got to block LVN one-on-one. The guard is going to have to block Devonte Wyatt one-on-one if he plays anything middle out, meaning the middle of the blocker or take the outside shoulder. You put the one tech in the A gap on the opposite side, right? And when you do that, you're forcing them to double team block him, because the 3 tech rusher is so far away from the center, he can't help there. He's just going to predominantly help with the one tech, right? The shade defender. So you're going to get a double team there. Put somebody there that's cheap, because you're eating a +1 hat count there. You're taking 2 blockers to block one guy, schematically lining up that way. Your 3 techs and single block, and then you want your dominant edge rusher opposite of the 3 tech. That's why you hear me say 3 tech and edge defender, top priorities on defense. You want to get pressure on the quarterback and still play the run effectively. Dominant 3 tech, dominant edge defender. Micah Parsons, right now it's Devonte Wyatt. Continue to look for a dominant 3 tech that plays the run better than Devonte Wyatt. That makes sense. So it's a long way of getting to the point, but it's the only way that I know how to explain it. So that's a look at the PFF grades. Warren Brinson has been a really good pass rusher for us. His last I checked, he was well over 10% in quarterback pressure percentage according to NFL Pro and GPS tracking. Okay, so I like him as a backup 3 tech, but he's not a dominant 3 tech. Again, he's not that dominant guy. So go get that dominant guy. Go find that dominant guy. It's not Carl Brooks either, which Carl Brooks, I think, is the final year of his contract, if I remember correct. Let me take a quick little double check here. Actually, let me put this up on the screen and we'll wrap up. I did not plan on going this long, but here we are. Y'all are probably tired of hearing that. Here are our scheduled free agents for this coming offseason, okay? Just give you kind of a quick glance. You got Quay Walker at the top here, his previous average annual. And again, that's what this is sorted by. If there's a market value, I will tell you that market value. But previous average annual value for Quay Walker is 3.4 million. Okay. So that's what we paid him on average. Again, some years are higher than others. 3.4 million. What are you willing to pay him? Notice there's no market value. They don't have a market value attached. Spot Track said, I ain't touching that. Heck no, I ain't touching that. Because again, Quay, if you just looked at his RAS, if you just looked at his physical traits, you would go, oh, this dude's going to break the bank. But then you turn on the tape and you go, that's tough. That's a tough watch. Now, there will be other teams that had a high draft grade on him that will be willing to overpay for him, right? They will be willing to overpay for if they think he's good. You guys know my whole stance. You never overpay for good. You overpay for great. What does that mean? You never overpay for Hashan Reddick at edge, but you're willing to overpay for Micah Parsons. That's different. That's a true difference maker there, right? So Quay Walker set to be a free agent. Devonte Wyatt. Now we've got him on a 5th-year option. It's not showing here for whatever reason. If I click on that, It's showing here with the club option. It just hasn't hit yet. So they still got him listed as an unrestricted free agent, but that has already been taking place. His cap hit is 12.9. So just completely ignore, disregard Devonte Wyatt being on those lists. John Fitzpatrick just tore his Achilles. Probably not going to be on the team next year. Hate to say it, John, but that's the brutality of this sport and the business of football. He was like, hey, trying to build himself up to maybe get a contract extension, $2 million per, maybe get $3 million fully guaranteed on a 3-year deal. You're not breaking the bank by no stretch of the imagination. He knows the offense. The Packers are bringing him back. Well, now contract year, he tears his Achilles. Got to start from scratch. It sucks, man. And that's why I always try to, when a player holds out for a contract, I don't bash them, man. It's a business. If we're going to bash a player for holding out for a new contract to make sure they get guaranteed money to protect themselves from injury, then we better bash the team for not giving him a contract extension right now because he got hurt. It goes both ways, right? So Malik Willis, it hurts. Malik Willis, 1.2. We talked about that yesterday. We're not gonna let's not spend any time on offense. My apologies. Zane Anderson is due to be an unrestricted free agent, right? Let's double check. It says he's an exclusive rights free agent in 2025. So now his exclusive rights are up. He is going to be an unrestricted free agent. Zane Anderson will test the market. If you don't get an offer, bring him back. I think Zane's a good football player, but you can't afford to pay him a significant amount of money. $3 million per, I'd be okay with it. Zane's proven his worth in that range, in my opinion. Nick Nyman, linebacker, he's going to test the market. If you can get him back for cheap, I'm cool for getting him back for cheap. Here's one, Romeo Doubs. We're going to talk about on offense, right? But his market value, $12.1 million is Romeo Doubs' market value. I'm not willing to pay him $12.1 million. Just can't do it. I think this will be the last year that Romeo Doubs is a Packer. Bo Melton plays corner, right? Restricted free agent. So we'll get him back if we want him. Staying on defense. There's your boy Nick Barre, exclusive or unrestricted free agent. No market value, but I think somebody will probably pay him more than the Packers are willing to pay him. Now, if he goes to the market and the best he can get is $4 million per, I'd be willing to pay him $5 million per. I think he's proven his worth in that regard. You can make it to where it's less guaranteed money, right? And you can get out of it after 1 year. And that's the best offer he got. That's the best offer he got, right? But I think he's put enough on tape that somebody will overpay him a little bit, and good for him. Rasheed Walker. I catch a lot of heat for Rasheed Walker, and me saying, I don't think he'll be back as a Packer. This is why. Are you willing to pay Rasheed Walker $23.7 million? I'm not. I'd be willing to pay him 10, 12. But if the market value truly is 23.7 and they do an extensive research on these market values, and I think they're usually a little bit lower, actually, is what history has shown us. This market value, according to Spot Track, is typically a little bit lower than what the players actually get. I'm not willing to pay him that, man. Yeah. Gooseby says, Walker done. I agree, man. I agree. So Chris Brooks, Brenton Cox Jr., restricted free agent. We can get him back if we want him. Kamal Haddon, we can get him back if we want him. So, again, man, when you look at these, the big thing is Quay Walker. I think there's a realistic chance he doesn't return to the Packers. I believe that. Devonte Wyatt's under contract. We're good there. The next one's Zane. Pay the man his money for what it's worth anyway. So I think the defense is in a good spot. But again, you've got Devonte Wyatt under contract for $12 million next year. Again, I think that you've got to continue looking for a 3-tech. And, that might be the 3rd round pick this year, 2nd round pick, what have you, right? It might be maybe somebody falls in the 2nd round. But that's why when we were talking our draft coverage this year, gang, if you'll remember, we were talking about how this draft is loaded with defensive tackles, right? And whether they panned out or not right now, who knows, and it's still young. It might be a 2nd-year jump or what have you. You never know how these things are gonna work out, right? But when you look at the 3-tech position and the draft was so heavy with them, what it tells me is they like Matthew Golden way better than any defensive tackles that were on the board when the Packers selected, right? So I want to take a quick glance here. I didn't have this in the plans, surprised, right? Let's see from the 2025 draft year, all 32 teams. Let's see who's trading out. Oh, my gosh, boys. It's going to make me sick at my stomach. Do you guys, anybody who watched the show consistently, let me move my water bottle so I can go to the draft board here. Can anybody remember who one of my favorite 3-techs were in the draft? And there was a few of them, but there was one that I talked about from day one. I'm going to get a sip of coffee here. Defensive tackle from last year's draft. Do you guys remember who my draft crush was? People on the podcast like, did I lose it? No, we're still here. I'm getting the draft board out. Because you guys know I have one that I really, really liked that stood out. J. Cole says Kenneth Grant. That was one of them at the top of the list. Kenneth Grant was number 2 on our draft board behind Mason Graham. Kenneth Grant was 1. Okay. That was 1, but that wasn't my draft crush. Jared says Mason Graham. It wasn't Mason Graham. Although Mason Graham was highest on our draft board. Keep in mind, guys, our draft board, it removes my personal opinion. Okay. We take the experts that we trust, we build the draft board, and then we'll have our own opinion off the side. But mine was, nope, it wasn't Harmon. There was a lot of people, Gooseby, that loved Harmon, right? I mean, they were crazy about Derek Harmon. I didn't see it. He wasn't my favorite guy. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, everybody's guessing around it. It was Walter Nolan. Do you guys remember? I said I liked Walter Nolan. So Walter Nolan got hurt this year, right? He got hurt. Walter Nolan, if you guys remember, he was out of Ole Miss, and he checked all the boxes, like for the most part. He was lit up gold on our draft board, which meant he met the athletic threshold. He performed in the the Senior Bowl. He was a team captain. The Packers had him in for a top 30 visit, all that, right? Derek Harmon got hurt, or Walter Nolan got hurt. But look who graded out the highest this year, guys. I'm so proud of this. These are all the rookies from the 2025 class that played defensive line. Now, there might be some sprinkled in an edge that that kind of, fell off the list or what have you. But look who led in PFF grade. Walter Nolan, 74.3. Pass rush grade, 80.1. Tackle grade, 73.8. Run defense, 57.4. So, again, as a 3-tech, as a pass rushing 3-tech, the run defense is always going to be the weak spot. But you notice it's significantly higher than Devonte Wyatt. Now, some will see this and go, but Clayton, he got hurt. That would have been a bad pick. I agree, hindsight being 2020. But what this shows you is Walter Nolan's going to be a dog if he can stay healthy. And I think that goes for every player in the league, right? So there you go. That is the guy that I was crazy about. And I didn't catch a whole lot of heat for that. I think people see it and go, of course, man, Walter Nolan, I think he was the number 1. And this is why I love our draft process. When we do our draft breakdown in our Patreon group, patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. Let me throw it up in case anybody wants to join our community here. When we do this, I love to go all the way back to high school. I love that. Like Rashan Gary, why has he played in the league so long? I think he's been a very good player for the Packers. Why? I think he was a top prospect when he came out in college football, out of high school to, enter college football, right? And he was asked to do some things in a run game, just like he's being asked to do some things in a run game for the Packers that went under notice at Michigan. I called a good buddy, big Michigan fan. Hey, what do you know about Rashan Gary? We just drafted him. He said, oh, Clayton, the stats look horrible. This dude is a difference maker, man. Unselfish player, team player. I've seen him occupy triple team blocks. This dude will play the run really, really well, and he'll get after the quarterback too. I thought that was spot on with how his performance, his career has gone as a whole. But Walter Nolan was one of, if not the top prospects coming out of high school. And then you just seen him dominate at every level. Like when he went to college, he dominated in high school, he dominated at college, and now he goes to the league and look at how good he looks here, right? Now, if we go off a major snap count, Mason Graham, who was our top defensive lineman according to our draft board, right? We had him with a 3.1 score, guys. That's a second tier here. Only Ashton Gianti, Abdul Carter were in a higher tier than Mason Graham. Mason Graham grading out a 69.0. Solid, right? Next, Aiden Huntington. I love to look at some of these players. Actually, let's fall back. Well, no, it's minimal snaps. We can't do that. Let's go to Aiden Huntington, 122 snaps with Cleveland as well. My goodness, man, they churning them out. Let's see if we can find Huntington because that name does not ring a bell for me. Did we have him on our draft board? Because that might have been one that went under the radar here. Aiden Huntington. I don't see him on our draft board at all. Let's see where he was drafted at. That's interesting. Does it show? Look at that, boys. Undrafted free agent. Stud. Looks like stud anyway, right? Again, not a bunch of snaps, but Aiden Huntington, got Cleveland found him one right there, man. 122 snaps ain't bad, 67.9. And again, remember what I always say? If you grade out in the 60s or higher, that's typically a good indicator you're going to be a good football player as a rookie, right? Notice these players that are in the 60s. right? Tyleik Williams, that's 161.2 on 403 snaps. We had Tyleik Williams with a 32.1 grade. I remember saying during draft time, I would be okay with us using our first round pick on him. It's a bit of a reach, but why? It's a defensive tackle. Way he plays nose, I got you. But when you're in a pass rush situation, you can kick him out to a 3-tech. You can kick him to a 4-eye and let him compress the pocket, right? His pass rush grade is a strong point, 67.5 at the NFL net level. So now there's some players in here that, like Derek Harmon, people love Derek Harmon, right? Derek Harmon, we have with a 24.7 grade, meaning he's worthy of the 24th pick, right? But again, personal opinion, I watched the tape and didn't like Derek Harmon that much. I had a lot of people in our draft coverage saying they love Derek Harmon, 53.9. Not a great start. Need to see him rebound and get into the 60s like Bullard did this year for us in his second year in the league. So just want to take a quick look. I didn't have that in the notes here to do during the show, but it's cool to kind of see. Look at Kenneth Grant, guys, 45.5. That is wild. How many snaps? 483 snaps. So Kenneth Grant is looking like a bust. We had him in tier 3 at a 13.7. And again, not my personal opinion, but the experts we trust. So the draft is just so hard to hit, man. It's so hard to hit. But Walter Nolan was my dude, no doubt. There was another guy, too. I'm trying to think of who it was. It was on down a little bit. I think it might have been Alfred Collins, maybe, that I liked. It was either Alfred Collins or TJ Sanders. TJ Sanders from South Carolina, kind of looking like it. He's way down there, too, at 41.1. Alfred Collins. Where's Alfred Collins at? Do we even see him anywhere? Holy cow. He must have got, no, there he is, 44.7. So that's a swing and a miss. But yeah, Walter Nolan to me looked like the slam dunk, and he got hurt, man. Who knows? With more snaps, he might have been bad. But anyway, that's just a quick look in our draft process and what we do there in the offseason in terms of the draft. So, yeah, Byron Murphy. I'm trying to get caught up on the chat here. Coach Lynn said Byron Murphy. Was that this year or was that last year? I'm trying to think of when Byron Murphy came out. Everything's running together now. Is Murphy on this list? Must have been talking about the year before, maybe. But I think Byron Murphy was toward the top of our draft board. I think it was last year, I believe. Yeah. Coach Lynn says he liked the kid from Toledo, Alexander. Let's see where he's at on this list. See down there. So Darius Alexander, was he the one from Toledo? I think he was. Let me make sure here. Because I think we had a decent, from Toledo. We had a 57.4 on him. So kind of a second round pick range, coach. He graded out a 40.4. It's hard, man. It's hard to hit on these dudes. It really is. I remember one we talked about was Thor. Y'all remember Thor? That was one of Jacob's draft crushes. Where's Thor at? Did he even make the list? My goodness. He ain't even on here, is he? So, well, he might have gotten hurt too. Some players, obviously fell. Tim's guy was Deion Walker from Kentucky. And remember, he graded out really bad. We always made it a running joke because he loved Deion Walker, and then Deion Walker graded out bad in terms of the RAS. Look at our boy Deion Walker, 59.3. He's on the cusp of hitting that 60 spot that we talked about, right? And Deion Walker sank down our draft boards when we created our final draft board. He ended up a 95.9, which is third-round pickish, right? But going into the season, his final year in college, they were projecting him as a top 10, top 20 pick. But it looks like I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of comes roaring from the back. So, again, why are we talking about this? I think 3-tech is a need this offseason. And Devonte Wyatt, I should say, is under contract, and that's a great thing. But it doesn't mean you don't continue to look for a new 3-tech. So, again, if we had drafted Walter Nolan, he had stayed healthy, and he'd been graded out in 70s, we'd be like, oh, we found another Evan Williams, right? We found another Edgerrin Cooper. We found a dog. Now, was he even available? I don't think he was. Let me double-check that real quick. When we picked – he got taken 16th, so he was off the board. Again, this isn't saying Goody screwed this up. I'm just simply saying that was the guy that really stood out to me, And I would have been okay if we'd have traded up for a guy like that. Of course, I'd have got raked over the coals if he'd have gotten hurt, right, and missed the entire season. We wasted our first-round pick. So, anyway, that's it, guys. Man, that was a long way to get through the top defensive players, but I'd rather have a long, extensive conversation like that in terms of breaking down the roster future, modeling the roster out. That's what GMs are doing this time of the year as well. They're kind of getting everything set for the offseason. Goody's not just sitting back going, how's this team playing? How's this team playing? They've been traveling all over the country, watching these college players already, putting scouting reports together. They're putting game plans together for the offseason and which players they want to interview, who's going to be their top 30 visits, who are they going to see at the combine, who are they going to visit at the Senior Bowl, all that stuff, right? So it's fun to kind of look back on last year what mistakes did we make? And I think this year, I think they may take a swing at 3-tech fairly early. I hope they do. Anyway, I hope they do. But then again, they may be sold on Devonte Wyatt, And one thing I will say, I wasn't trying to beat Devonte Wyatt down on this episode. Devonte Wyatt is a very good pass rusher. He's just not a very good run defender. I want a dominant 3-tech. I want a Quentin Williams. I want somebody, man. I want somebody that other teams go, how the hell are we going to block this guy? We're going to have to put a tight end over to help chip the edge so we can completely fan the center over out of position. The guard is just going to jump to the outside shoulder and the center is going to have to crack. We're going to force them to double team on that side. Then you turn your 1-tech loose. And in a pass rush situation, if you got Wyatt on one side and you've got Walter Nolan on the other, that sounds a lot better, don't it? So just something to think about. But with that being said, appreciate everybody tuning in today. Again, just wanted to get a little content out here. I got to go get everything ready. We got like 30 people coming over for Christmas. So I'm going to be Mandy's helper today. I'm going to go, what do you need now, honey? What do you need now, honey? That's what it's going to be all day long so we can get the house ready. So appreciate everybody tuning in. If you would, hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, hey, give us a go pack go in the comment. Anytime I ask, hey, guys, let us know how you feel in the comment section. If you don't have something, I don't really have anything to add there, just hit us with a go pack go. That's good enough for us. All right. A go pack go or a cheese emoji, something like that. All right. Let us know that you're out there. And anytime you comment, you like, you subscribe, you share the stream, obviously it helps the channel more than you guys know. But we appreciate everybody jumping in here on short notice. And look at Dev Fish with the facts at the end. Thank you, buddy. He says on July 31st, Thor was waived by the Seahawks. So there you go. We'll have to get Jacob's opinion on that later. But and I agree. Like Thor did look, he was an interesting prospect. He was way down on our board. And I don't think he liked that. I don't think Jacob liked that too much, but I want to say Thor was significantly lower. Give me just a second. Now you got me thinking here. Where did Thor land on our list? Hell, I can't even find it. About to pull a Bob Uecker here. Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it. Where's Thor at? We'll have to look that up for you guys and gals. We'll see if we can find him later. Jacob probably knows exactly where. Jacob Stalker level. He probably knows his address, his home address. So anyway, we're out, guys. Hit like, hit subscribe, click the bell icon. We'll see you guys maybe later today. I might do a quick stream if we get some more injury information. If not, then I'll probably do a stream tomorrow at some point when the family's coming and going. We'll just do a quick live stream, give you guys the final injury report, all that good stuff. So again, we're rooting against the Lions this week on Christmas Day. So everybody make sure that we get our juju in sync here, right? And put the hex on the Lions. So they lose, the Packers are in. We can kick back and go into these next 2 weeks trying to get this roster just right for the playoff run. But appreciate everybody. Y'all have a Merry Christmas. I'm sure I'll talk to you before Christmas is completely over. Anything that you guys celebrate, happy holidays to everybody. Really appreciate y'all tuning in and supporting the channel. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack Go.
Here we go. We're out.
Bye, guys.